it looks slightly different today, which is why I'm like hesitating, but I am getting communication from you, which is good. So I'm happy that it's working. I'm going to rely on the powers that it is coming through. Good morning, Danny. Okay, cool. Amazing. All right, so welcome. Welcome to our third and final workshop. How are we feeling? Those of you that are here live at the moment, morning. What's your energy this morning? How are you? You know, what's going on? Just if it feels alright to share a word or a sentence or emoji, whatever you wanna. Just feel into what's true for you this morning. Good. I love it. Love the excitement. Someone's woken up. Great. Amazing. All right. Yeah, please do share how you're feeling. Just so we actually, yes, it's beautiful for me to get a sense of, where you are at. And also it's quite a nice opportunity to just check in for a moment, right? Like getting the practice of, okay, what's happening? What's true for me right now? What do I need? So really needing this work. Yeah. So good to have you here live. Okay, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that, Vibeke. Okay, so already been on a run. Oh my god, Nicola, that's amazing. Yeah. Inspiration. Excited and curious. Beautiful. Amazing. Thanks for sharing. Keep going if you're still typing and thinking and feeding into what's going on. Okay, fantastic. So let's do a little recap, right? Like we started the workshops, we started this process by going into why it's important to look at our patterns when it comes to healthy boundary work, right? That was our foundation on day one. And you use the boundary audit tool to get clarity as to some of those patterns and narratives, as well as to get more specific as to perhaps what's not working for you in your life or in particular areas in your life. And then we went into day two and we looked at 4 protective beliefs, right? 4 main protective beliefs that for a lot of us tend to run the show in terms of boundaries. And we got to know the ways that, some of the ways at least, that these beliefs may influence our behavior and create unhelpful and unhealthy patterns, right? So you hopefully by now have a more grounded understanding as to some of your protective beliefs that may be driving how you relate to yourself, how you relate to the people in your life, how you relate to the world around you, how you think of possibilities and what's available to you and rules and assumptions and ideas. We're doing all of this, right? What's the point of doing all of this? We're doing all of this to get to a place of deep self-awareness, okay? And ultimately, self-acceptance. I know self-love is a thing that, people bang on about, and it's beautiful, but it's fluffy, in the sense that it can be quite tough to embody, right? Especially when there's these protective beliefs running the show, telling us we're not good enough or other people know better. It's quite tough to then, lean into self-love as a practice. So what I'm offering is self-acceptance, because self-acceptance sort of tips its hat to all of our shadows, right? The parts of us, like the patterns that we've uncovered together, that we don't really want people to see, and we actually try quite a lot, we spend a lot of energy not to see ourselves sometimes, or some of us, right? And self-acceptance makes it safe to be all of you, right? To encompass all of that. Self-love does as well, but it can be a little bit, it can create resistance. So self-acceptance perhaps can be a way into, feeling safe in ourselves. So the reason we need self-acceptance, why am I talking about this in terms of boundaries? The reason we need self-acceptance is because it's part of a bigger puzzle of leaning into our healthy resources, especially when we're challenged, right? Versus falling into the same traps or the familiar patterns that we've been talking about. So leaning into our healthy resources, such as our intuition, our creativity, empathy, curiosity, kindness, patience, advocacy, our ability to problem solve, our flexibility, our adaptability, intellect, discernment, vision, perspective, leadership, and so on, right? Just a few examples. And healthy boundaries are part of that puzzle, are part of our healthy resources. So today we want to think about what can actually support you to start to build a healthy practice of boundaries, right? One that is open, one that is expansive, supportive, and flexible. Yeah? Yes, absolutely. Let me just check in with people as they've joined. Definitely curious about today. Yay. Welcome. I love that. Beautiful. Great. That is the part that's hard doing. Doing it when things are feeling tough, so you maintain. Yeah, that's the thing. And which is why when we practice something new, we practice it when we are feeling safe. We have to start from a place where our nervous system is in safety rather than in fight or flight or in an anxiety response, in a stress response. Because we can't learn when we're in a stress response. We can't learn when we're in survival mode, right? Which is why, doing this work requires also stretching our capacity to tolerate discomfort, right? And practicing safety, practicing compassion like we spoke about in day 2, practicing self-care, but like the real self-care, right? So that you give back to yourself in the way that supports you, so that when you go and you test out new patterns, or when you go and you challenge patterns that have been keeping you safe for a long time, your capacity has been widened to do that, so that your body doesn't go into survival mode straight away. But that is an excellent point. That it's our challenge, right? So we need to practice doing something new over and over again at times when it's we're safe, we're feeling motivated, we're comfortable. Maybe there's a bit of stretch, but it's safe for us to do, so that we're creating these new pathways, right? We're starting to change the way that our brain fires, essentially. We're creating new highways of thought, of highways of existing. And initially it takes a lot of effort to do that, right? Just like, it's so much quicker to go through the highway because it's beautiful and clean and, open for us. It's much harder to, walk down a mountain path and have to there's plants around and there's holes and mud, right? But over and over and over and over and over and over again, once you get to know it, it becomes less and less, it requires less energy, less effort to go into it. Okay. Went into a tangent there, but hopefully it's helpful. So when I go into these suggestions, right, I want you to think of them as tools in your toolbox rather than, a sort of recipe with a perfect result, right? Like if you follow these steps, you will get this particular result. We know that the ego, perhaps for some of us, that perfectionist tendency might come in and try to regain control, right? Because we've already stretched the ego here, we've already stretched that part of us that wants to do things properly, and it's like, oh, I don't feel comfortable, holding these protective beliefs when they're not right for me, why am I doing that? So it's trying to regain control, and it's like, yeah, give me the solution, I want to fix it, like tell me how to do it, give me the tools, give me the pill to take, right? Like tell me what to do. So notice that. Notice if the ego is like, tell me the tips. And yes, absolutely, we want practices, we want tools, but notice any tendency to sort of disengage or get bored even when I offer you kind of the opposite, right? When I say that I'm actually not going to give you anything particularly shiny in terms of the practices or the tools, right? I'm not going to give you anything that you don't already have, because what we're doing really, it's not about fixing. We're not going to fix anything here. Because we've learned, right, from day 2, we've learned that there's a reason why you're holding these protective beliefs, and we don't want to make that wrong. What we do want to do is start to decipher, is this helpful to me moving forward, right? Right? I understand why it has existed, I understand how it has been protecting me, and I understand now why it's screaming so loudly, because I'm testing whether I need it. And can I choose how I move forward, right? Can I bring discernment? Can I bring, intention moving forward, right? So it's not about fixing, it's about being with, right? It's about navigating, allowing, it's about deepening. Because fixing happens a lot, and tell me how you're feeling, right? Like, tell me what's coming out for you. But fixing will lead us to start patching up holes, right? We're going to be like, yeah, that boundary is wrong, let's put up a wall, let's tell them they can't go any further, and temporarily it works, right? But it's not going to last. So I'm not really particularly interested in offering you any quick fixes in this work, just for you to feel sort of a temporary sense of control, because then I would be speaking to your ego, then I would be speaking to that survival mode, and that's ultimately not going to be to your greater good, right? Obviously it would sell more because it would be shinier and here's the solution to all your problems, but I'm not doing that, right? So what I want to offer you today is an invitation to be with your stuff in a more powerful way, to break cycles without that force, right? That we're there, we're gonna smash it, right? But actually, a power that comes from within, that is, just as strong, but it does not require force, right? Breaking patterns with that inner strength, that inner trust, yeah? Which is why I teach boundaries as a practice of self-belief more than as a practice of, how to communicate them. And yes, that comes, as I've said this over and over again, yes, that's important. Yet, actually, it's about self-belief. It's about our relationship to ourselves. All right, tell me how we're feeling. Are we I wanted the tips today? We're gonna come to tips, but just a little invitation to take them gently, right? But tell me how we're feeling, how we're finding this so far. And take a sip of my coffee. Okay, I'm going to keep going and I'll check in with comments as they come in. So, let's look at some of the tools then, right? Because actually it's important to get our hands dirty, especially when, makes total sense, thanks Abby, give me some validation. Thank you, I feel it. I love all that you have said about this. Thank you very much. You guys are very kind. No, I agree. I'm glad this is resonating. So what I was going to say is that, when it comes to boundaries, actually, the whole, if you're to complete the process, we require action. We do require practice. We do require us getting in the arena and doing the work, right? And so if we keep sort of intellectualizing, we get it, it's all clear, when it gets to, we're but now how do I do it? Yeah? So there's a balance of both, which is why I do want to speak to that. So the first one, which I've already alluded to since day 2, since our workshop around protective beliefs, is to, practice number 1 is to start with curiosity and observation, yeah? Start where you are, employ curiosity, bring sort of a sense of lightheartedness, and observe where you stand. Be where you are for a bit, and I say this because, as I said earlier, the ego will want to rush this process. We'll be like, okay, let's fix it. I get it now. I get it. That's my belief. That's my pattern. How do I fix it? How do I come out of it? Because it's very uncomfortable for us to be in that space. But actually, that is the space where we collect all the data. So try not to resist. Like, I try to resist like jumping ahead of this and skipping it. You know, pay attention to the stories playing on repeat in your mind, the meaning you apply to things, the identities that you kind of cling on, right, for safety. Be curious and be gentle. Approach this part with immense compassion and take, as I said before, take plenty of time and care to, you know, step out of it as well, so that you can integrate, so that you can rest. Notice how your body feels in situations, right? So this is the observation you'll be doing. Notice how your body feels in the situations. Notice how your breath is, right? So if you're in a situation that's challenging you, that's bringing up all those, you know, the sort of activation, what's happening in your body, right? How is your breath? Because you can learn a lot from that. You know, are you activated, or are you withdrawing? Are you becoming passive? Are you like, I'm gonna try to disappear so nobody oversteps my boundaries here? Or are you like activated, defending, getting angry? You know, that's all, you know, we can apply judgment and miss the point, but actually if we observe it, we get so much, you know, so much gold in there. Notice your energy, notice your emotions, notice obviously your thoughts. Notice how you act and how you don't act. Notice what repeats, right? So by observing, you get to see, you know, is this familiar? Has this come up before? Notice how you feel after an event like that, or an experience like that. Right? So number 1, curiosity and observation. Number 2 is quite a fun little tool, or suggestion rather. It's called the Joy Bucket. I can't take credit for it. I don't actually know who created it. But anyway, here you go. It's a great exercise to actually play, right? To get to know yourself more deeply, allow yourself to play, and then you actually collect great information. Has anyone heard of the Joy Bucket before? Essentially, you take a bucket, a jar, you know, a sort of big-ish container, not like a tiny jar. And you place it somewhere where you see it visibly sort of every day, so you stay connected to the practice. And for the next, let's say, you know, you do it for a month, I would say do it for a month. Every time you have an experience that makes you happy, you make a note of it and you put it in your bucket. So you want to be quite sort of, you know, inclusive of information. So if you have a conversation that made you feel inspired or happy, or, you know, write who was it with, you know, what were you talking about, where was it, what was going on, like how did you feel afterwards. So collect that information, not just had a conversation, was happy. That doesn't give you enough information, right? Happy can feel like, you know, a sense of expansion, or sense of freedom, or actually a sense of ease, you know, maybe a fizziness, or you know, like activation in your mind, or like, oh, this is so interesting, or, you know, a big yes feeling, or a very soft, peaceful, you know, you can interpret happy in many ways. When the jar starts to get to the bucket, the jar starts to get full, right? You want to empty your bucket on the floor, open everything out, and review it. And you're starting to look for patterns, but different types of patterns this time. You know, trends, like clusters of joy that start to point you in a direction. Now, be careful, this is not because you're trying to find the holy grail of what makes you happy, or what your purpose is, or anything like that at all. Actually, no, this is about, you know, paying attention to what fills you up, what you need more in your life. You know, what does it tell you about actually what you need more of, right? We're starting to create a space where it's safe to, one, receive, you know, be in a place where we receive pleasure and you know, allow joy to be around, and encourage more of it to come in. And actually we're in a space where we allow ourselves to matter, right? Because when you give yourself experiences of joy, you're proving to yourself that I do matter, my needs do matter. It's okay that I need this type of experience to fill me up, right? Yeah. Okay, let me just check in. So this is number 2, the joy bucket. Let me check in with. I love what you said about this. The awareness point is really spot on. So glad to know that there isn't. Yeah. Let me just. It doesn't read very well. I'm gonna check again because my screen has frozen. Okay. But yes. Glad you're resonating with the awareness point. Absolutely. Number 3, right? Begin to take responsibility for change. So we've already started thinking about that, and now we want to get a bit more active around it. So we identify, right? Identify the pattern. So you already have some tools to do that. Identify now the patterns that are most influential when it comes to your boundaries, right? And identify then the protective beliefs that are underneath those patterns, right? And apply some of the following filters through the situations that you find challenging. And I'm going to share this in written form, but some questions that can help you in terms of the filters is, where do I stand on this? What's okay for me? What's not okay for me? What do I need to do to take care of my own needs, right? Here is you taking responsibility for your needs and for change, right? What assumptions, expectations, narratives am I holding? So in every situation you notice yourself being triggered, ask yourself again, what is happening here, right? I'll repeat all of these. Where do I stand on this? What's okay for me? Excuse me. What's not okay for me? What do I need to do to take care of my own needs? Right? It's a reminder that boundary is about what you do, not about what other people do. By placing a boundary, you can't expect others to change their behavior. It's not about that. You are the one who's changing something. Yeah? So what do I need to do to take care of my own needs? What assumptions, expectations, narratives am I holding? And then finally, if this speaks to change, if I embodied my sovereign energy, right? What would change? So with this, you begin to create distance, right? Between your healthy, core, expansive self, right? And the part of you that's in sort of survival, or the part of you that is in the drama, in the patterns, in the ego, right? Does that make sense? We're starting to create, because most of the time, a lot of us, the majority of us really, are identifying with the drama. We are identifying with the voice of, the protector or the ego, if you like. We identify with the thoughts in our heads, essentially, right? But actually, we're so much more than the thoughts in our heads, because we can think anything and doesn't make it true, right? So right now, I could ask you to think some random thought does not mean, your thought doesn't mean it's a fact, just because you think about it. However, because we think things over and over and over and over again, we convince ourselves that they're true. Now, I'm not saying that none of them are true, but they're largely biased. And so, what else is available to me apart from this kind of drama, right? And when I use the word drama, I don't mean it in the sense that, the situation or the problem or, the issue is not important. Not at all. It is. And there's so much more to you than just that. Than just how you're responding to that, right? So we want to create a space, like a buffer, so that your sense of self is not attached to what you're thinking, to those patterns. It's not, your identity is not hooked on that drama. But actually, you take your identity and you place it back inside in this, vastness that is you. We can't really define what that is, right? And in that space, the space that you're creating, is where you can get to know exactly what you need. You get in touch with your truth, you get in touch with what you stand for, and you embody your boundaries, right? And in that place, you start to build healthier beliefs, which are aligned with where you truly stand today and not what you needed as a child, where you built those original beliefs. All right? All right. I'm going to go on to the next one because they lead together, right? So taking that responsibility for change, starting to play with that space, right? Then, parallel to that, courageous action, right? So being confident in your boundaries does not happen because one day you wake up and you finally have enough confidence, right? A lot of us are like, I'm not ready yet. I'm waiting for my confidence. When is it arriving? I've ordered it. Amazon Prime, right? We're waiting for it to come from the outside, and we're like, look at all these other people, they're so confident, where do they get it from? Right? Confidence, being confident in your boundaries happens because you build self-belief, right? You build your self-belief through small, courageous experiments that are designed to strengthen those healthier beliefs that we talked about, yeah? So it requires courageous action, and little actions over time have a compound effect, right? Confidence is a skill. We think it's a quality, but it's actually a skill that you need to practice. And people forget, or we don't actually get taught this, but like you need courage to build confidence. You need courage to practice confidence, right? So instead of asking yourself to find confidence, which is quite hard, yeah, and it's like looking outside for that, asking yourself to find small resources of courage, right, or small moments of courage, because we all have that, in order to take action in line with your helpful belief. So I'm going to give you some prompts for that. Again, you will have all of this, but always praying for confidence in a jar. I know, I mean, anyone who like markets that becomes a millionaire, but then you open the jar, there's nothing in there, right? Like practice, absolutely. Yeah. So glad that there isn't a recipe, as that would be more about willpower. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so courageous action. If you were taking action in alignment with your values, what actions would you be taking today? Right? So that's a question. If you were taking action in alignment with your values, what action would you be taking today? Another question, what do you want to say no to? Right? And it doesn't necessarily mean I want to say no to this person calling me after 6 p.m. But it might be I want to say no to the way, this is set up in the world, right? You might start to find that there is sort of anger and frustration about bigger things, or maybe quite individual things. Everything goes, right? What would you like to stop doing and or start doing, right? So this is very much practically, like where's the change? This is taking responsibility for change through courageous action. And how would these choices serve you, which is important. We need to remind ourselves, like, yeah, habitually I'm going to want to go this way, but actually I know how they're going to serve me. These choices are going to serve me in a different way, right? So taking courageous action here means that you do so while recognizing that your protector, right, that ego part of you, or whatever you want to call it, will show up to manage the risk, right? Because you're taking action that is outside of the comfort zone, and I say this, not in the sort of popular way, but the zone that you have, your protective beliefs allow you to be in, where they feel like, okay, the part of me, the inner child in me is safe in this bubble, right? So taking courageous action, even like a tiny step outside of that, or just on the edge of that, your protector is going to be like, whoa, where are you going? Why are you doing this to us, right? And if you identify with a protector, you're going to be like, oh yeah, oh my god, this is survival. I'm going to have to protect myself. Let's go back in. However, if you've created that distance, right, and you're like, okay, yeah, I hear you. I'm paying attention to you, protector. I know why you're saying this, right? It's okay for you to be worried. I get it, because it used to be unsafe for me to act in this way, right? I learned that it's not okay for me to act in this way, or it's not okay for me to speak up, or it's not okay for me to X, Y, and Z. So I get it. I can let my protector speak, I can let my protector have its moment, but I don't have to let it run, the show or drive the car, whatever metaphor you want to use. Right? This is how you begin to walk down a different path. Okay? It is knowing that your tendency, what you've learned that is safe and what your habit is, would be to do X, to go down this path, because you know it, and that's, in some ways, familiarity is comfort, is safety. Yeah? And therefore that's survival for us. So knowing that my tendency is to go that way, and as you slow it down, right, being open to choosing another path, which in the past you didn't know. There wasn't even an option. It was like walls all around you. It's just, this is the way we go. Didn't even know that it was on a path. And now, because you're starting to unpick things, you might start to get into crossroads. Sometimes you would already walk down the old path and you'd be like, wait a minute, I wasn't supposed to go this way, I was supposed to go that way. And this is how you backtrack, and this is very relevant to boundaries, because there might be times when we have to backtrack, right? Especially in relationships. You go back and you're like, wait a minute, I need to take responsibility for this. Can we go this way, right? So knowing that your tendency would be to go that way, right, to walk down that path, starting to be open to, to see that other path, right? And I know that my tendency is to go this way and to believe this thing, and I can choose to now walk down this way. I can find that courage to walk. It's new. I'm going to feel, unsafe. And I know I can keep myself safe because I know why I'm doing it. I'm not just like forcing myself down. This is not about jumping off the cliff without a parachute at all, right? This is all intentional and very planned. Yeah? Is that making sense? Tell me how we're feeling. Are you still here? Have I lost you? So we need to do that over and over and over again, as I said before, with the analogy of like the highway and the kind of mountain path, right? Until it requires less and less conscious effort to do so. And then your mind will find it easier to just sort of be like, oh yeah, I can go this way. Yeah. So can you give an example? Yes, I will give an example. So an example, let me just think of something really simple. How you respond to being, okay, let's say you're in a sort of intimate relationship, in a partnership, you've started to notice that, you need a lot of sort of verbal validation, you get triggered in a conversation, you start going down an argument, right? And you go into blame, right? So for example, maybe you're in that space where you feel like, the running story, the protective belief says like, I'm not being listened to, right? My beliefs my needs don't matter here, right? So my partner is not listening to me. So I have to kind of, maybe your pattern, the path you're going to go down to is, I need to sort of manipulate the situation so that I get my needs met. I need to, tell them that they've hurt me, or tell them that, well, I did all of these things and you haven't given me space. Because I did all of these things, I don't have the time to now go and, do my painting, let's say, right? So starting to check, to know that, right? Knowing that, okay, I need, my pattern, my belief is that, or my, protective belief is that I'm not being listened to, right? My partner is not paying attention to me, or that in order for me to get myself heard, I need to sort of do it in tricky ways, okay? Starting to be present to that, which starts with that curiosity, that observation, and then taking a step out of it in safety, so not in an argument, but outside of that, and asking yourself these questions, right? Like, if we go further up, like, where do I stand on this? Do I actually believe that my partner doesn't listen to me, right? What do I need to do to take care of my own needs? What do I need to have in place, right? And so starting to take action, building an experiment where it's safer for you to say, actually, I'm in a partnership where I believe that we're respectful of each other, right? So I'm trying to kind of make up a new belief. Like, we wouldn't do it this way, we would actually go in and work through it, but just for the purpose of giving an example, right? So a helpful belief might be, I trust that I can get my needs met, or that I can ask for what I need, and it's safe for me to do so, right? Without it meaning that I'm going to get rejected in the relationship or I'm going to get shut down. And so if I was to take action from there, what could happen, right? What would I do differently? Would it be to communicate differently? Would it be to, come up with a schedule for the day and say, look, I've planned my painting here, does it work for you? Or can we find a way to work through that? What do you need? This is what I need, right? So that it might mean that you don't get into an argument, or that you do get into an argument, and then you have to look back and be like, oh wait, here I am again. This is triggering me. I get why this is triggering me, because I'm familiar with this, right? So can I rewind? Can I take responsibility? Okay, I'm speaking like this, I'm passing blame because I feel like I'm not being heard, right? Does this help, Emmy? Tell me if this is making sense, or if I've now confused you even more. Hopefully not. But this is essentially how you could start to create a little experiment. So for example, asking yourself this question, like, what can I, yes, okay, great. What can I do to get my needs met, right? If I was in a space where I believe that it's safe to do so, right? That this is how you create that new belief. Amazing. Okay, let me just put this all together, right? And I have one more tool, or tip rather, but we started with that curiosity and observation, right? An idea to work with, to get to know yourself better and give yourself a chance to play and bring sort of lightness to this process is to do the joy bucket. Then we went right back to responsibility for change, right? So we do take responsibility for our patterns, and we also need to take responsibility for how we create change here. And then number 4, courageous action, and starting to create those little experiments of, like, what would it be like what would I do if I was to take action in alignment with my values, in alignment with my new helpful belief? What actions would that be, right? What would I do differently today? And then number 5, which is the last one, which I also really like, is practice keeping a promise to yourself for a month. Now, this is very different to discipline yourself and show up every day to do this perfect thing perfectly. No, right? This is a promise. So pick something that matters to you, not too small, but also not too big, and practice showing to yourself that you matter through action. Because self-love, self-acceptance, all well and good, but actually we need action. Just like in relationships, our words matter and our actions matter. We're in relationship with ourselves. So can we reinforce our self-worth through that action of, yeah, I do matter, and I can keep a promise to myself, right? Try doing this for a month. Try doing it for 2 weeks. See what it's like. Be curious. Again, this takes you right back to the beginning. Be curious. and also be specific with it. Try to make it clear and quite intentional. All right. Whew. Okay, I'm gonna pause here. Let's take a breath. Shake it off. You know, if you're making notes, you can come back to it in a moment. Just shake it off. Maybe roll your shoulders. Take a nice big breath in through the nose. When you're ready, let it out through the mouth. Maybe close your eyes just for a second here and be with, you know, what is something from what I've shared today that you'd like to try out, right? So moving away from just the intellectual side of it, what is something practical that you'd like to try out? Yeah? And make a note of it. So open your eyes and make a note of that. Feel free to share it here. Yeah. The jar. So you may be in one of two places right now, right? So one, you may be at a place where you're like, amazing, I've got loads of info, lots of food for thought. Thank you very much, amazing. I'm very happy where I am. You might also be in a place where you're like, this is amazing, I've got a lot here, my head's spinning, got a lot of insight from all of this, and I want to go deeper in terms of my boundaries. So I just want to share something that I'm very proud of. Created a new course which is about boundaries, and you know, it's really a space for you to go into the details of what we've been doing, right? Keep a promise to myself. Yes, Joanna, amazing. So the course is called Impeccable Boundaries, and it's a 6-week program where I will take you into the practice of what we've been doing, right? Clear, courageous, and expansive boundaries that create the space for genuine self-expression, deep self-trust, and true belonging. Yeah. It felt so good. I actually kept a promise to myself yesterday, one I promised myself every year and never follow through, and it felt so good. So this really, oh, that's really beautiful. I'm glad. Having that experience is just so, right? And you know, when you've capitalized so good, and all I feel from that is like expansion. That's what it's about. Like, this is a boundary right there. Keeping a promise, we don't think of that, but this is a boundary, right? That's where it all starts from. So the course Impeccable Boundaries combines psychological theory, evidence-based practice and tools, as well as the energetics, right, that are essential in unlearning conditioning, which is what we've been talking about, and embodying healthy boundary work, right? My pleasure. So I'm not going to overwhelm you with too much detail, but essentially what it looks like is we're going to have 6 modules. So 1 module per week. It includes like pre-recorded videos and audios and so on. Keep promise to myself and being curious, amazing. And then we also will have 6 workshops where I will lead you live through the key learnings of each of the modules. So we actually get an opportunity to work together live. And the modules will cover things that we have touched upon and more. So I'm just going to give you an idea without kind of overwhelming you. We're going to go into the psychology of boundaries where I introduce you to various theories, right? As well as we're going to look at the relationship between self-doubt and applying the self-belief model to boundary work, which is key here, right? We will dissect protective beliefs together and build healthy ones. We will learn how to recognize unhealthy behaviors and patterns when it comes to boundaries and beyond that. We will look at the energetics in boundaries, or boundaries in particular, the sort of feminine, masculine energy and what that means. How to embody your values through boundary work, which is, you know, at the core of it. We will then go into the action modules, right? And that is, that includes, how to create courageous relationships through breaking patterns. No worries, Emmy. How to manage conflict, which is a big one for people, that concern about, I'm gonna get pushback, right? How to advocate for your needs in a way that is mindful, in a way that is respectful, but also for impact, right? We will look at how to build self-trust in order to break the cycle of self-abandonment. And we'll go into specifics, specific areas such as, boundaries with time, with productivity, with perfectionism, as we've already, touched on a little bit. Boundaries with the self and the mind in particular, our physical, our sexual boundaries. We're going to look at boundaries in terms of people pleasing and being that victim, martyr identity, and so on. You also get some sort of like cheat sheets, I want to call them, or like sort of like done for you scripts where I kind of share some language around boundaries, which is really helpful in terms of communicating when it comes to it. The idea is that it's a really full-rounded program, right? This is what I want to pass on to you. And it supports you to get really, really clear as to what needs to change. It supports you to take responsibility for the change and to build your capacity to embody your boundaries with deep self-belief, knowing that you belong to yourself, right? So that's all I wanted to share. We start on the week of the 28th of February, so late this month, essentially the beginning of next month. And to thank you and to honor the work you've already done, there is a special rate for you, and I will send all of that information to you. It's essentially £100 off the total price. And you're going to get all of that information. So the idea is that you get time to now sit with it, decipher where I'm at, what do I need, is this enough information, do I feel like I want to invest myself in more of that. And I trust that you will take your time and be with the details at a sort of quiet, space, and make that decision from a place of calm and grounded space, right? So that's all for me today. I know we've gone slightly over. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's been here, everybody who's watched, live or later. Really well done. Make sure that you celebrate yourselves, right? Like, make sure that you celebrate yourselves for being here, for committing to, exploring these things that, you're willing to look at some pretty uncomfortable stuff, right? Like, why would you want to do that? It's kind of, but we know why, right? The Facebook group will remain open for a few more days, so I'll be around. Please ask questions and so on, right? Because I can help you with where I'm at. I hope to see some of you in Impeccable Boundaries really soon. And well done. Let me just check in with some comments before I go. Thanks so much for these really different. Oh, I'm very glad. Emmy, amazing. Not Emmy, Danny, sorry. Yes, Danny, I'm very glad. I have just completed 4 weeks of meditation challenge, 1 hour in 1 war. Amazing, it's been really good. Yes, perfect. My promise to myself will be to continue another month at least. Amazing, we witness you. Well done for sharing it here. Really great. Beautiful. Thank you so much, everybody. Really well done. And I'll see you in the group with your questions or anything else that comes up. Well done. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you so much. So grateful to you. Well done, everybody. Lots of love. I'm going to let you go. See you soon. Bye.